Giving everybody, we're going to call the meeting to order at 5:01. Okay, welcome to our May meeting of the Vermont School Boards Association. Yeah, it is so nice to see almost all of you in person, and we miss you guys online, but it's also so nice to be here surrounded by all of your amazing work. I would like to welcome interns Education Zoe Sanders to our meeting. Yeah. First, we're going to do a round of introductions, Zoe, and we're going to cover our VSBA beliefs and priorities, and then we'll give you a chance for you to. Yeah, so I'm going to get us started. I am Claudia Smith. I use she, her pronouns, ella in Spanish, and I'm the school board chair of Washington Central Unified Union School District. I'm going to pass it to Sue.
Thank you, Flor. I'm Sue Siglowski, Executive Director of the VSBA, also she, her pronouns. Thank you. I'll pass it to
Mark Love, Peachum Chair and Caledonia Central Supervisory Union.
I'm Basil, representative of Central Vermont, on the Royal North School Board.
Hi, I'm Pam. Her pronouns.
Neil Adele. Norwich School Board, the past president of the VSBA from the Norwich School Board, and then also the Dresden School Board, which is the interstate school district in the country.
Michael Inners, Franklin Grand Isle region, and chair of the Champlain Islands Unified Union School District Board.
Jim Salzgiver. I'm on the Taconic and Green Regional School Board and chair of the Bennington Wetlands Supervisory Union.
Melanie Virgilio, she, her, representative for the Taconic and Green Board.
Carrie Lamb, the Director of Operations of the VSBA. She, her.
Suzanne Buck, I'm one of the two Addison reps. I'm the vice chair of the Addison Central Supervisory District. She, her.
Mark Koenig, him. I am the other Addison rep. I'm the Addison Northwest School District. And then I also wear a hat of Georgia City Council.
Barbara Postman, I'm on the Lake Region Union High School Board, and that's up in the Northeast Canadian.
Tara Arneson, I'm the vice chair of the Mount Mansfield Union Unified School District, and I'm Eastern Michigan representative.
Tara Sweet, I'm the vice president of the VSBA. I am the chair of the Fletcher School Board, and I'm also a member of the Franklin West School Board and Franklin Grand Island County.
To get there, our board members online, I'm gonna get started with Dan. You're at the top corner of our screen here. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Dan MacArthur, School Board Chair in Marlborough and also member of the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union Board.
Dan. Mark?
Mark Kaufman, Caledonia Central Supervisory Union and Twinfield Union District.
Sonia?
Hi, I'm Sonia Spalding. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a member of the Barrie Unified Union School District.
That's done.
Hi, I'm Gaston Bethelon. I'm one of the two Kingdom North representatives. I'm the chair of the Troy School Board as well as the chair of the North Country Supervisory Union Board. Over.
Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Russell. Did you say Nancy?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm Nancy Russell, and I am the clerk for the Hartford School Board in Hartford, Vermont.
So,
Hi, I'm Joe Winreck. I am the vice chair of the West River Education District Board, and I also serve on the Wyndham Central Supervisory Union Board.
and Laura, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, yes, I'm Laura Williams, student Chittenden. I'm coming right from school, so. I apologize.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the introductions. everybody. We are gonna cover, provide some information about the VSBA, the priorities, and some of our resolutions. And then we'll give Interim Secretary Saunders time to speak on her initial plans and introduce himself for the implementation. The VSBA is a nonprofit member organization with the purpose of supporting local boards in fulfilling their duties, promoting public education and providing a collective voice for a strong education in Vermont. We represent almost 900 elected school board members and who serve 120 school boards throughout the state. Every supervisory union, supervisory district in Vermont is a member of the VSBA. We have some technical career centers also that are school districts that are the board of directors, as you can see, it's made of 24 school board members from throughout the state, 2 school board members from each of our 11 regions. We have the regions there, I know they're small, but you can see that there's a graphic up there. Plus the president and the past president. Our past president is here with us. So the VSBA believes, I'm not sure you're familiar with all of them, but I thought I would go through them if that's okay with you. Public education, our first belief is public education is the foundation for democracy. The VSBA represents, as I said, school boards from around Vermont. Public education in Vermont is critically important for a healthy democracy, and it's the engine that drives our economic development, and it is the core of our strong communities. School boards and their communities need to understand our jobs, roles and responsibilities, and school board members across the state and boards need to have professional development. And we all here at VSBA work really hard in making sure that our own boards do that. Public education is the greatest equalizer. Education is a fundamental right. Vermont is a state where every student has equitable access to world-class public education, and our students are driven by their aspirations to empower school boards who ensure student success. The VSBA is the glue that ties together local boards. We take a lot of pride in that, and it is respectful of different positions of our school board members. Not everybody always is on the same page. Our members actively participate in the resolution process and is the foundation of our public policy and legislative work. The VSBA has over 50 resolutions. Do not worry, I'm not gonna go over 50 resolutions. I will just gonna go over 3 priorities. I felt it was important to go through our release though, but the first resolution that I'll highlight calls on the General Assembly to bring Vermont's town tuition programs into compliance with the United States Supreme Court ruling, Carson versus Making, without violating the compelled support clauses of the Vermont Constitution. We want to ensure that the agency of education understand that this does not mean that status quo of utilizing public funds to pay for religious schools tuition. It means that we must find a way to achieve separation of church and state. We hope that the agency of education is committed to the compliance with both the US and the Vermont constitutions. The second resolution that I'm highlighting states that it is critical to ensure that public dollars supporting private schools, pre-kindergarten programs, and after-school programs carry with them the same obligations regarding quality, equity, and efficiency, transparency, and accountability that apply to public school districts. We hope that the Agency of Education will support and advocate for equity, transparency, and accountability in the use of public funds. Third, the resolution I'm highlighting requires VSBA to convene a task force to assess concerns that the Agency of Education and the State Board of Education are not providing appropriate support for the education of Vermont students. And I know that Sue had met with you and shared a little bit of this before, but we have conveyed a task force, which consists of 1 school board member per region. And based on that work of the task force, the VSBA will provide the General Assembly and the governor with a report. One of the areas that it will cover is the data. There is a concern that the Agency of Education does not collect and report data accurately or timely. Districts receive information late or not at all, or have significant errors in it. It's also unclear that the agency uses data to inform its own work. In the interim, we hope that it will work to improve the data collection, analysis, and reporting of the agency. We anticipate the report will cover the areas including roles and responsibilities of the State Board of Education. We also anticipate that the report will inform the upcoming resolutions work the VSBA is doing, perhaps leading to other more specific resolutions related to the Agency of Education and the State Board of Education. Lastly, just because the legislature sure, still going on in full force. Our associations have provided sustainable testimony in an effort to eliminate the core cost drivers impacting public education. In our view, changing the funding formula will do nothing to affect this root causes. On the contrary, last minute changes to the funding formula stand to make it matters worse in terms of equity, which Vermont Constitution requires, worse in terms of transparency, and worse in terms of the ability of public school systems and the hardworking educators dedicated to its success. To navigate the difficult decisions required to bend the cost curve, if the agency of education is committed to addressing the root causes of the cost of education and wants to respond to the governor's call to slow the growth of education spending, then responsible structural reform is needed. The agency of education should not put the cart before the horse and support changing the funding formula unless and until serious work is taken to address the cost drivers and also really have a vision for education. At this point, I have a little bit for the end, but at this point, I would like to turn it to you, Zoe. Thank you for joining us today. And let us know what are your initial plans as we get started.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Zoe Saunders. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with all of you. As the interim secretary of education, I see it as being very important that we have an open dialogue and two-way communication so that we can be in alignment. You, as you mentioned, represent over 900 elected officials across the state. And so I think it's really important for me and for the AOE to be able to hear some of the priorities that you're capturing through your work in representing school boards across the state. So in terms of my initial plan in this role, I really spent the first 2 weeks on the job orienting myself to the education landscape of the state of Vermont. And I had an opportunity to visit a number of different supervisory unions and districts across the state, and was intentional around trying to get an overview of kind of a diverse portfolio of areas. So it's diverse in terms of geographic region, diverse in terms of the structure and oversight of the governance board. So I was able to visit supervisory unions that were some of the largest geographically and also single districts to understand that. I was able to visit tech centers and after school programs and schools of varying different sizes. So really in that effort was just to give me an initial onboarding on the ground to understand the diversity of educational offerings across our state. I also had the opportunity in parallel to be working very closely with the Agency of Education staff, including all staff meetings, but also division meetings to really get a handle on the key functional areas and project deliverables and field support as well. I did publish a 100-day plan. I think we probably have Sune had shared that with you. And at this point in the month of May, it's really focusing on identifying how we can develop a more robust listen and learn tour, building upon our partnerships in the community. So looking to understand today if there's some opportunities where the AOE may partner with some of the existing meetings or conferences you might have coming up over the summer to be able to gather some of that feedback and engage in that two-way dialogue, which I think is really critical. So far, in the role, I've identified a couple key themes that can come out and that Flora, you did reinforce in some of your communication. One, I'm definitely hearing that need across the state to develop a unifying vision for education. And as I really dug deeper into that, I think there are a lot of elements that are already in place, but the state has made some really wonderful progress in defining, and it's a matter of kind of creating that coherence across those key areas of focus. I've heard a lot too across the state around kind of balancing unity versus flexibility, right, and ensuring local control. And I know as school board members, you really have a pulse on your local community. And I come with bringing a background and understanding that importance in working with really large systems and recognizing the value of having folks on the ground, being able to call attention to those localized needs that sometimes do get lost when you're looking at a large system. I've heard a lot about mental health concerns. I think every superintendent and principal that I have spoken with has talked about the increasing needs for our students that they're experiencing. In terms of data, Lori mentioned that, that's definitely come out as a key piece that there's an opportunity for us to be able to at the AOE create more robust data reporting. Certainly timing, I think, has come up too. And also, as I'm going through that process, I'm looking to understand, what data we own, what data and what we don't, right? And so where we don't have access, that requires some intentional collaboration within the field. And so looking to bridge that gap so that we, as an agency, can certainly be supportive of those data reporting needs, because I believe really strongly that our decisions and policy recommendations need to be data driven and also informed by best practices. So to that end, and as I'm looking at developing the listen and learn tour, part of that is being able to get input on, as we think about the resources, technical assistance, and support the AOE is providing, really identifying what's working very well and is very helpful in supporting work across the state. And then where there are some opportunities where we may be able to refine or enhance to better meet the needs of the field. So I think those conversations are going to be really important and helpful to the agency as we shape our key initiatives moving into the next academic year. And I'll stop there if there's any questions, but I could also touch on some of the issues that you brought up too. Related, I've heard a lot about roles and responsibilities, and you've mentioned that in your discussion. It's really clear that we need to spend that time really identifying roles and responsibilities of all the actors in the education space so that we can better coordinate and effectively work together. Definitely coming into a very high stress and challenging time for the state of Vermont. And in my experience in dealing with those type of crises, that often erodes trust in relationships, which is why I think it's really important in my role that I'm getting out there into the community, having these types of conversations to build those relationships, to understand where maybe in the past there have been misunderstandings, to understand maybe new perspectives. And in my role, I'm very aware that we may not always agree, but I think you can certainly trust that I come with an open mind. I'm a hard worker, and I'm really interested in doing whatever's right for kids, right? And that means having some of those difficult conversations sometimes that I think we may need to have as a state as we think about the future. In terms of public dollars, I've been really consistent in saying that I believe there needs to be a high accountability to public dollars and making sure that they're placed in driving great outcomes for kids. In terms of their task force, I'm happy to learn that you have been proactive in convening that. I'm eager to hear the feedback that group has identified, and I hope we have the opportunity to look at that more closely. And then I think the last piece you mentioned in terms of, changes, right now, I think that's been a big topic of conversation. Certainly there is an affordability crisis and challenge that we're facing as a state. I think the different stakeholder groups I've spoken with have all really cohered around that as an issue. I think the other piece that's important to bring into the conversation is really talking about equity, which I know are part of the values of your board, and making sure that decisions are being equitable and creating equitable opportunities for kids along with outcomes. I know that was the intent of Act 173 to really promote greater equity. And I think what we've seen in the reporting, from the Joint Fiscal Office is that's not playing out in practice, right? Which sometimes happens when you implement new legislation. And I think in the case of Vermont, what we're seeing is that the areas that are more affluent are spending more money on education. And we need to be thinking about how we ensure that resources are allocated to make sure that the kids in higher poverty rural communities are getting the resources that they need. Just immediately as we're looking at many failed budgets, I've been really intentional about working with, I've met with the Vermont Superintendents Association to really understand some of the challenges that they're grappling with, and then intentionally working directly with superintendents who are among the lowest spenders on education in our state, whose budgets continue to fail, right? And to really understand that, to me, creates even more of a clarion call around that we need to think about this broader reform and think about it in a way that is equitable, because in areas where there are lowest spending, they still are struggling to pass the budget. And that's a concern as we move forward. And I think really warrants us to have further investigation as we look at these broader opportunities for us to elevate public education in the state of Vermont. So I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to share a couple opening remarks. And I hope that in our conversation today, that I get some input from you too on how we can partner as an agency of education with the School Board Association to really identify those priorities, which I know many of you joined for your task force, but also work to build consensus on a path forward. I think, crisis also creates an opportunity, right, for us to come in with an open mind and think about how we can work collaboratively together. And I think what I mentioned earlier is really focusing that work around what's going to be in the best interest of students, what's really going to help students and give them more opportunities academically and also to be successful after their academic career here in Vermont. With that, let's open up to questions on the floor. You got another part of the agenda?
I have just a little bit,
Sure.
piece, and then we can open that for question. We have a pretty tight agenda today, so I'm gonna I just want to say, like, the duties of the Secretary of Education, as you know, they are laid out in law and are focused on Vermont and strengthening Vermont public education. And the next Secretary of Education will have a profound effect on the future of Vermont public education system, the children and families, and I think you have outlined a lot of those priorities. We cannot afford, we are really worried as a board, and we cannot afford to watch Vermont public education system slip away. And we hope that we can count on you as an interim secretary to support and advocate and strengthen public education, and to have a strong working relationship with the VSBA. And also, because of the office of the Secretary of Education is so important to the future of the education system, and we also hope that you will support and encourage the process of naming a permanent Secretary of Education as soon as possible. And again, thank you for being here and willing to attend with us. I think if there's some, questions that the board has, I'm happy to open it to that, but in that we have a very long agenda too, but if there's something that we missed, then please.
Both sides did a good job of kind of covering. I think there can be some good collaboration and discussions. Task forces already talked about how they can reach out within the next few days or week, I think, to figure out how you can be part of the next steps going forward.
Have you finalized the recommendations at this point?
No. That's what we're hoping that as it's starting, get your feedback into how you could benefit from the information. So ask the questions that are interesting to you too.
Absolutely. I welcome that opportunity and would like to bring some other representatives from the agency also to engage in that broader discussion. And so I'll look forward to identifying a time when we can do that. That's great.
I think one thing just to mention, I mean, you brought up local control, which is obviously an important, Vermont value. But as well, you've talked to the VSA, VSBA, GPA, as well, we've got a lot of these out there. And, I think one of the important ideas as well is collaboratively working on solutions.
Absolutely.
And I think that's, very important to us the VSBA doesn't want to have all the say because we partner with those other people and look forward to creating opportunity working on.
Absolutely. I think that's the strength of Vermont, that you have really strong associations organized. And I do see the agency being able to play a role in helping to convene and collaborate across those different groups. So I appreciate that.
Anybody online? I don't want to miss you guys either. But
sorry, I had my back to you the whole time. My apologies.
No, they can see you go out.
Okay.
Great. Good to see you.
Great.
So thank you so much for being with us. You can stay, but don't feel like you have to stay either, and you're busy. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. What's that?
I have one. Your worst. Thank you very much.
Thank you for.
Thanks. Have a good meeting.
Yeah. Bye-bye. Hey, right on time, 4 minutes. Okay, reporting the task force on collaboration. Separately, it's gonna give us that update.
Can I just remind everyone we have to speak up for the hour?
Oh, that's right. Do my best. So the task force last met on Monday, the 6th. We have a few folks on the task force in the room today, so chime in if I miss anything. But I wanted to be brief in the update. This is what this was the outcomes from the meeting this last Monday. So focus on increasing the survey response rate. One, I think, responses as of Monday out of 20 or so. We know folks are incredibly busy, so we're keeping that open for a while longer. And I'm getting some inquiries, so I know that people are talking about it. So thank you for all of your feedback. A consideration for 2 or 3 resolution proposals that could address some of the issues that the task force has been talking about. One would be around roles and responsibilities of the Agency of Education, another around roles and responsibilities of the State Board of Education, and potentially a third around the Secretary of Education search process. We revised the project plan timeline to better align with the resolution timeline for that exact reason, so that the information and the work moving forward is in alignment. One is feeding the other. So we're really considering the work of the task force when we're looking at resolutions and vice versa. And then advocating for retention of the House's language in H887, the Mules bill, which as we know is being discussed right now in the Senate. There was some immediate advocacy following the meeting on Monday. And then we added 2 working group meetings to start drafting the report because we realized that 1 hour a month is not going to be enough to write the report. So we have 2 working group meetings, and we also extended the June 5th meeting to a 90-minute meeting. That was the outcome. I don't know if I missed anything more. Okay. Any questions?
I just have one question. How specific are some of these recommendations going to be? I have, like, our board has a particular, in the school has a particular thing about the data that the AOE is using and how they report it. In particular, it has to do with the snapshot and when they do it and all that. And I just wondered, how specific are these recommendations going to be?
I think we got to that point. I can tell you data
Data's a
top
big
priority, and likely we may give some examples. And there have been plenty of examples of where data has either been missing or been inaccurate. So we may.
Well, this is a bit more misleading than anything.
Yeah, but you make sure that you fill out that survey, right? How your board filled out the survey, because all of those questions are asked there. It went to board chair. Board chair.
Oh, okay. Our board chair is not real good at sending things out.
No, because if it's the board chair and the superintendent should coordinate to fill it in, but if you have
Together.
together,
I'll talk
so
to
if
him
you
and make
have
sure that he
specific
has-
concerns, make sure that you have shared that with your board chair.
Okay.
If we compare to board wants to forward its own resolution.
Well,
Yeah,
we're thinking,
exactly.
we're thinking of that, and maybe get together with Gaston and do it together, because, we had talked about maybe doing that, and I didn't know if that level is.
Your board can propose any resolution,
It can
the
be very
resolution
specific.
will, yeah, okay, that. Violation.
Would some getting information outside the survey format be helpful? Some of the things we want to say would fit well in the survey format.
I mean, certainly can submit it all, and it'll be a process of collating, pulling all that information together into a report that then we can base recommendations on. So certainly feel free to send me information that doesn't fit on the survey.
The timing was a little bit longer term, but considering circumstances with a new secretary and interim secretary, are we gonna try to get something out a little sooner as you talked about having a meeting, just, trying to get something, some initial feedback, out, might like, it would make a lot of sense instead of waiting till year end.
That there possibly
Yeah.
be something in August or September.
August.
There's nothing even close to being able to put out right now.
Yeah, make it. Our goal though, it would be before year end because our goal is to share the results at the annual meeting. So, sooner than year end.
You know, at the risk of being thoughtful. And being thorough. We should be careful.
Yeah, the idea was that we would have at least a draft of the report for our.
No, it's a really good point, because if
Yeah.
we whatever we put out first is probably gonna
Most of
not get all the attention.
Yeah. And we want to make sure that we stay in that collaborative and frame it so that it feels that way.
I would.
Could I just ask, has the group felt like they've gotten the focus that they wanted? I mean, I know we struggled a little at the beginning as to what it would look like and would be involved. Is the focus on us or?
I think we've gotten buckets. We know the major areas that want to be discussed. But it's been kind of slow and we're only meeting once a month. And
There's a consensus on those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're able to narrow now that we're working on a survey, we can start looking at the information there. Now that we have a secretary to talk with, the idea at the last meeting was to bring her into the fold right now with all the surveys still live and say, are there questions that you would want to be asking to make this report useful to you as opposed to just, clubbing you over the head with it. So I think that's going to be happening. One of the other things we discussed is since this resolution has a death date on it, at our next meeting, this task force ends at the end of December. If we're still going and expanding, we may put a resolution forward saying, can we extend this another year? Not to have the report necessarily extend, but to create more information.
Keep developing
and gathering.
So second report.
We don't know where we are right now, but that might come before the annual meeting saying the task force is asking if this resolution be extended for a year.
Yeah, and I think, Mark, the one thing that we have to consider too is that hopefully the yield bill is gonna pass this. Passed by the House, and it would be nice for this work to sunset and focus on resolutions and not compete with the work and then have somebody up.
It was just tossed out meeting saying,
But
will we be done? How would it work since we would no longer exist?
Yeah, and I think it should operate on resolutions so that we could testify but we can talk about that at the next meeting too, when we get an update. Our next item is the legislative update. We were thinking, and I'm looking at Sue, we were thinking of tabling the legislative update with the hopes of maybe we could run this meeting quickly, and this is a crazy idea, but we would all march to the State House, they're still meeting. And depending on the timing, because it would be pretty powerful to see us all come in right now, the craziness that is going on. I think I shouldn't be saying craziness in the recorded meeting, but it is pretty crazy. And
so I can tell you, I just got a text from Kara and she said that they recessed to clarify the Senate Finance Committee's amendment. It's not all, it's about 5 of them that supported it. And that's the one that we sent the action alert about last night. And then she said, Anne is presenting the amendment in the calendar now. So I believe she means that it's being presented on the floor right now by Senator Cummings. So yeah. Oh, well, I mean, it's easy to pull it up on YouTube and see what's going on.
Okay,
so then Kara goes into the gallery, she can't have her phone on, so she can't give us updates, so she has to run out.
Yeah, just so you know, dinner is ready if you want to do it early, that's an
Okay,
option as well.
yeah, we could, so what we were thinking is that we would do dinner and then move right, there's 2 things, or at least one thing that we for sure need to do today, which is the budget. And then, I would like to appoint a committee for the resolutions, and that doesn't take very long at all, and then we'll see where we are then. Is everybody okay with tabling legislative update for right now?
And I can send you a written legislative update by email, so you can have the rest of the information.
And Kara is staying there for us. Anyways.
So are you saying that we'll just kind of skip over that, pick up a couple pieces and then do dinner, or?
seems like if we're all sitting here, we might.
Or if you wanna do the budget in a hurry first.
Oh, why don't we do the budget and then we grab the dinner and I'll give it to Jim.
Put the live feed up while we eat.
Yes, we put the live feed up, yeah, so you know what's going on.
That's
It's literally, it takes about a couple of hours.
Stress with that for eating.
So let's move to the budget. Jim.
Okay, yeah, the budget documents are in the package, you know, presented essentially, you know, it's the usual. Revenues, expenses, and we have some net items that we, you know, look at every year. There's also. You know, a balance sheet in there, but I wanted to run through quickly. You know, happy to answer any questions on individual line items if people have them or whatever, but. Let's give some more general. You know, comments on both, how 24 came out and the budget for 25. You know, this process, you know, started with, you know, Sue and Carrie working things up, working through with me, and the finance committee. Going through and agreeing upon, you know, the budget that's in front of you. Major points to note, for fiscal 2024, the current year we're currently in through June 30th, we're looking at, we're expecting a surplus for the year of about $100,000. The big factors there are one, the combo of the VSBA service agreement and collective bargaining supports. We spent, you know, we're not negotiating, we spent about 65,000 less than budgeted on collective bargaining. We also had an impact that we decided, you know, Sue does an excellent job of managing this relationship with VSBA, which is a really important one. We should all thank her for that. She had they had a final $40,000 payment that would have been coming to us this fiscal year, but since we're 65 under and on the spending for this year, we decided to, you know, we've got to maintain a relationship, and we, you know, we were foregoing that 40,000, but you know, with a full commitment to, even though we're not negotiating again next year, full commitment to the same level of funding from VSBA last year. Or next year as we had last year, so that's the 320,000 or whatever. So for the last year, that was one factor that helped create a, you know, part of our surplus. Compensation was also a significant. You know, the VSBA and collective bargaining was about 25 of the 100,000 in surplus created last year. Compensation came in about 32,000 less. If you remember last year, we went from 4 people to 5 people, and we did some guesswork on the numbers. We also had some people with some turnover, which created, you know, essentially it's heavily the turnover that created the 32,000 in extra savings for the year. Staff travel and development down by about 11,000. We expect that to come back to normal next year. NSBA delegate expenses also favorable by about 11,000. And thanks to Ford getting on the NSBA, we'll continue to save some of that money. So, you know, there were other variances in there were smaller, but basically, you know, we you know, for good reasons, we came out with about 100,000 surplus for the year. Like the prior year, we started off the budget for this year, essentially the plan to roll that into next year's budget. So the surplus from last year goes directly into the 2025 budget. And so essentially to, you know, cover future expenses. So, for 2025, the budget, employee compensation, we said we're under last year, expecting to be, we budgeted in the end an overall about 6% increase in compensation costs for our people. I think well worth it. On the VSBA bargaining agreement, as I said, we'll have the same amount coming from VSBA, 322,000 that we did last year. And one thing that was discussed a good deal was the fact that, okay, we've, as we know, the VSBA or the employer commissioners are not going to be negotiating this year. we kind of viewed that, and Sue viewed that as a great opportunity for us to actually use this year. We need to do something to change the tide. And so at this point, essentially, we took what we thought could be reasonable and increase the budget for the employer commissioner collective bargaining support for the year. The idea is using additional expertise, outside expertise, could be lobbyists, could be, data people, whatever. We need to turn, that 16.4% increase in those regular losses into something different. That may take legislative changes we've tried for years. Could take, we don't know, but we've been, I think, our folks have done a very good job and we've got a good person running it. They kind of have one hand tied behind their back versus the NEA in the negotiations. It is a good opportunity to potentially spend a little bit more, at least make more available to the employer commissioners so that they can maybe, get some of those wins on legislative changes, somehow convincing the NEA that some evil things like HSAs are not actually evil, or, it's, make some progress. So we actually beefed up that portion of the budget. That's one of the biggest changes for the year. Also you'll notice interest in dividend income. Our switch over to the new approach with investing is having a positive impact. So that's helping us nicely. Net, the overall budget for next year, and this is, expenses equal revenues. So, the budget number for next year is an 8.6% increase overall. Part that we're all interested in is the dues, and the dues level, we proposed a 5% increase in dues. I think that's reasonable in the current environment, and honestly, we need to, we're bringing 100,000 over from next year, and we don't know what, we need to keep that in a reasonable place. We want to make it very predictable, but with reasonable increases on an annual basis. So, we're kind of trying to manage that really on a multi-year basis, recognizing what do we want the dues to be this year and what could be the pressures next year, et cetera. So the 5% increase, we all agreed, we thought it was reasonable and reasonable requesting. Also, each year we are asked as per our financial policies to compare the increase in dues over, provide information, what did dues do over the past 3 years versus what did education spending do over the past 3 years. And I'm pleased, happy to mention that we've had, over the past 3 years, we've had about a 5% increase each year in dues. At this point, due to an ugly year of education spending, that's about half the level of increases education spending over the same period of time. So we're well within the sort of guidelines that were set. So that's my overview. I don't know if people are happy to take specific questions or concerns or any.
Just to play devil's advocate, would this not be a great message to say we understand cost drivers and we're not going to increase dues this year?
I get concerned with that just because, trying to take a multi-year look. What I don't want to do is create a situation where we don't do any increase and next year is going to be a big increase. I think at this point, we know that we're going to have the pressure of last year we brought forward 85,000 of surplus from the prior year. This will bring forward 100,000. There are good reasons we have those monies, but we don't know that, we may have none of that next year. And then odds are we're going to have to cut back on something to maintain the dues.
I totally get that argument, Jim. I'm just talking about messaging in this year.
Yeah, which, I think that, hopefully, and Sue talked about some potentially smaller numbers and stuff like that. And we actually talked her up to 5% being probably a reasonable number. Honestly, it wouldn't make much of a difference if we made it a little bit smaller, but I like the idea that over the past, so we've had between 4% and 5% increase, 4 and a little over 5% increases for, this will be the 4th year.
Jim, I totally get where you're coming from. I'm just talking about this year and messaging.
Well, I think also all of our school boards, my school board, we felt really good about coming into the low single digit increase, but it's not easy under these circumstances, so I think, again, I think it was a reasonable request. I understand that. It'd be nice to do that, but
Jim, can you give an example?
fiscally, I can't get behind that.
Can you give an example of like, so the district is paying right now? Just so that, because it's easier to contextualize the first.
Okay, I don't actually have
Carrie, please.
Carrie as the district by district, well, I should probably do that here someplace.
I don't think we have to go to that detail. I was just talking about general messaging.
Yeah, no,
I know we can make the case for actors and all that, but I'm just saying.
Michael just said it's like 20,000 overall, so that's spread across all of the districts.
I understand.
Right.
I'm just talking about messaging.
Yeah, and I think, but you bring up a good point, Mark, but I think in the messaging, you could, like your thing is 20,000 across, it should be.
Yeah,
And I think they get a lot of value.
If the entire board wanted it to be 0 this year, we would figure out a way to make 0 work. There's more for them to do. That's just my thing. I'm an old nerd in finance. I'm a nerd in finance, guys.
Melanie?
Might also offer that next year might be worse than this year. And then we take that up with 0 also. So when do we start to find a balance? Maybe then we can think about it. Also, I think having 0 dues is just not a good idea because the VSBA is providing a tremendous value. 5%, yeah. I mean, if you're saying $20,000, all the schools put together, that's the income. So we're not looking at a lot of money that the school boards are spending in terms of their budgets.
Well, an additional spend, added across all the districts.
Right.
Because our total dues, last year was, 484,000, this year 507. So that's that, so we're getting a decent amount of dues from around the state, from every district in the state, obviously. Areas, Yeah.
What's the VSBA service agreement?
Okay, that Vermont School Board Insurance Trust, so they run VHI and which is the health care, and then they also run the commercial insurance. For everyone, they have viewed it as in their best interest to provide us with funding, so we help school boards do smart things, so they don't take as many losses. So they depend upon the VSBA to set up the employer commissioners to negotiate healthcare that they provide in the end. And also they look to us to keep school boards on the straight and narrow so they don't get a whole lot of suits that would lead to a lot of claims against the insurer. So they are the insurer for the school boards.
Right, and one of the major things that they also support is our model policy manual. The work that goes into that.
So that's, it's it's been a wonderful relationship. I should have let Sue answer that, I'm sorry.
I'd move the budget as presented by Jim.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so
Smart, that was smart.
second by Barbara Tussman, Kingdom North. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Being none, motion carried. Thank you, everybody. And that's
There's one thing off the agenda.
Yeah. So
Do you want to do the resolution?
why don't we just do the resolutions and then we'll have dinner? Now that we're on our roll. So we have some new board members, so I'm just gonna go ahead and read this. According to VSBA bylaws, resolutions are positions taken by the association on issues in accordance to the Vermont Schools Association, and they may include recommendations for action by the VSBA or local school boards, the legislature, the executive branch, or any other decision making bodies. Resolutions shall be statements of specific positions on behalf of the association and shall be in effect until the next annual meeting when they will be deleted, continued, or amended by the vote of the entire membership. Your task, if you're gonna volunteer for this, will be to review the proposed resolutions and to make recommendations to pass or do not pass, or take no action on those resolutions. The committee may develop its own resolutions, which shall be included in this report to the board of directors, and it will be approved by the entire board, and will be presented at the annual meeting. This year, our annual meeting is going to be remote. We'll talk more about that, but we have shared this before. The committee shall prepare the report of the resolution and its recommendations, and it will be presented to the board of directors. This year, our vice president will be the chair of the resolutions committee.
That's what our bylaws say.
That's what our bylaws say.
How long are you?
I'll be here till October.
She'll be here until October. So she'll be our chair. So thank you, Tara. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go region by region. So do I have a volunteer for Addison?
I'll do it again. Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Just curious, about how many times do you guys meet for the resolutions and when does that work?
So in the past, I'm gonna let Sandra ask, but in the past, we try to make it work 4 times. Go ahead, Sandra.
There's a long meeting in the beginning to go over all of the information, the current resolutions as well as proposals, and then sometimes we have to meet a second time if there are any questions or follow-up needed.
Is this a Zoom meeting?
Yeah, remote meeting, yeah.
In summer sometime?
Yes, it'll be because of the timeline of the task force. It'll probably be beginning middle of July.
Okay. Bennington.
Right, so she told me I was gonna do it, but it sounds like maybe she wants.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
I'll do
Okay, so great, Melanie.
it. So I have to follow up in there.
Okay, Central Vermont.
Mark,
I'll do it.
I'll sign.
Okay. Okay with that, Sonia? Great, Eastern in Chittenden. And that is what Chittenden.
Chittenden is Kara or Diane? I was wondering if they're one by calls. Because I don't know what's going on with Diane.
So Tara.
You won the award. I get a book and an award. This is the best meeting ever.
You were like,
And both Sarahs will be on.
we have Franklin because Tara is right here, so Kingdom North.
I'm happy to do it, Barbara.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah. Kingdom South.
Does Mark want to do it again? Mark Kaufman.
Mark, which of the marks?
Mark did it last year. I don't know if you want to continue, Mark?
Which
On
Mark?
the resolution.
On the resolutions committee.
Certainly.
Thank you, Mark.
Okay. In Rutland.
I don't think Rutland's here.
Rutland's rep here.
We don't have anybody in Rutland. Lisa and Linda couldn't come.
So should we just, well, we'll email. Well, yeah. Western Chittenden. Sorry.
Thank you, Laura.
Wyndham.
Dan said he'd like to continue on that and I'm fine with it, but he had to leave.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
And Windsor.
I can Nancy dropped off the call.
Yeah. We'll check in with them.
Most likely it would be Nancy. She's the only
rep.
Yes.
Nancy or Nancy. So, okay. So could I have a motion to? Do you want to approve the minutes? Yeah, so I just want a motion to approve the resolutions committee as read.
I'll move that.
She moved it. It's just.
I'll second.
Suzanne and Tara Sweet.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, everybody. All right, So with that, we can grab our dinner. Good job. I'll try to see where the session is while you guys are grabbing dinner. Okay. Sorry for you guys online. Food was really, really good. So thank you to Terry for putting that together. Yeah, let's move into the strategic plan report.
Okay. I'll start off and then everybody has a little bit to contribute, although Kara, I'm not gonna ask you to because you're eating.
I'll be fast.
No, we don't need to do that. No need to rush. We are gonna focus on for a moment, but just because we're gonna talk about the fact that the board already knows this, but Kara is leaving the VSBA this month. Her last day is gonna be May 31st. And luckily, she's agreed to do some work for us on a contract basis after that date, including helping with the retreat, planning and facilitation of the board retreat in June. So this is not the last time you're gonna see Kara. We're very, very grateful for that. And Kara, we just want you to know how grateful we are for your work on behalf of the VSBA, both in the legislature and all your contributions to the model policy manual and board training. Members really, as you know, rely on VSBA to keep them informed about what's happening in the State House, guide them on how to influence legislation, provide them with up-to-date and legally sound model policies, and you have really excelled in all of those areas, and we're gonna miss you tremendously. So thank you very much, Kara. Wanted to let the board know we have started the process to find someone to fill the position. We're holding initial interviews on May 15th and second interviews are tentatively scheduled for May 21st. And then I wanted to give Debbie's a report from Debbie because she's not able to be here this evening because she's actually providing professional development to a school board tonight. So I wanted to highlight some important work she's done under KR 2.1.2 to revamp the new school board member academy that we provide each year. The first session was held on Monday night of this week, and the next session is going to be held next week. These sessions involve the whole staff providing a foundation for the new school board members to build on in order to become effective and productive school board members around the state. We really enjoy meeting all the new school board members when we do these trainings and building connections with them. It's free for all new school board members, so hopefully the new members on your boards are participating in it. And additionally, under KR 2.1.4, Debbie worked with Chelsea Myers at the Superintendent's Association to publish a leadership expedition guide with options for members to meet the requirements for the mandated board training, which is the chair superintendent training that's required on an annual basis. And then she's also providing customized board development to 4 boards during the month of May. So she is really busy, and that is why she's not here this evening, because I believe she's with Nancy's board, actually, Nancy Russell board tonight. Yeah. So I will turn it over to Sandra now.
Yeah. Hi. So in addition to the task force that I reported on earlier today, I just wanted to share a little bit about the VSBA continuing its work to advance equity internally as well as externally. So we've got I think I mentioned before, equity lens for policy review being finalized. That'll be coming out soon. You probably have heard or seen in the weekly update as well, we're starting or reinitiating, as Carrie told me today, an annual membership survey. So we'll be collecting information about our members to better serve you all. So that is coming forward. And then I also wanted to share Kara and Debbie and I have been working on a scale or a rating system for the DQS, for the standards that will go into effect next July, a year from this July. Working closely with the AOE, and we will dive into that a little bit more at the retreat with all of you. And lastly, just wanted to tell you we have 1 superintendent search in process still, and 1 new superintendent eval starting tomorrow or next week, early next week.
All right, I'm gonna give the little bit from Kara, which is talks about the key result that we have in our strategic plan that calls on VSBA to provide timely and relevant legislative updates to our members. During the month of April, VSBA staff issued a number of legislative alerts, as I'm sure you saw, related to the yield bill and also the Secretary of Education confirmation, as well as providing legislative updates to members in the weekly email. So we had, they're in your monitoring report in your packet. Can see the details on the legislative alerts, like what they were about and their open rates. And they were, the open rates were really quite high, like in the 74% range. So that is a really excellent open rate on those. And I know that a lot of board members then did follow through and contact their legislators as we had asked them to.
Are there any questions on strategic planning update? Yeah, none here or up in the screen either. And we're going to move into our, just have some information discussion on our board retreat.
Sure, I can give you a little info on the board retreat, which is coming up on June 12th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Trapp Family Lodge in Stowe. We're going to start with affirming the board protocols that were developed at last year's retreat. And then we're going to be doing a participatory workshop on the governance standards that are going into effect on July 1, 2025. As you will recall, those standards were developed by the VSBA by a group of school board members that we pulled together from around the state at the request of then Secretary of Education Dan French. They require school boards to develop priorities, processes, and protocols, and there's like different requirements under each of those three main areas. And now that those standards are in place and going into effect in about a year, the AOE is responsible for issuing scales for boards to use to measure whether they're complying with those standards. And so AOE has asked VSBA to help with developing those skills. It is a ton of work, and VSBA staff, Sandra, Kara, and Debbie have met for months now, at least once a week, working on it for several hours. So what we're going to be doing is, before we send this work back to the AOE, we are going to be enlisting your help in refining the skills, and that work is going to take up the morning of the retreat. And then in the afternoon, we're going to review the results of the VSBA board's self-evaluation, which is a survey that we're going to be sending out to you by email. We can probably send it out tomorrow, Carrie? Yeah, we'll send it out to you tomorrow by email. And we're hoping you can answer it, fill it out by the 17th, which is a week from Friday. I think it would probably take you like 15 minutes at the most to fill it out. So it's not a lengthy thing. It's the same survey that the board did last year for your self-evaluation. And finally, we'll hold a short business meeting at the end of the retreat if needed. We're going to wrap up by 3 p.m. The board retreat is a great opportunity to focus on the important work of this board and how it can be a role model for effective, efficient, and a well-operating board. And it's also a fantastic opportunity to get to know one another better, of course, which contributes to the effectiveness and smooth operations of the board. Anything you want to say about the retreat?
Yeah, no, I think you covered it all, Sue. I think we're looking for 100% participation in the survey. Whether you can come or not come to the retreat, please fill out the survey. It's important information for all of us and to get to know each other. And we are hoping that you guys could be excited about being up at the lodge. Food, and it should be a great time to get to know each other.
Can we get some rooms?
See, they don't have discounts in the room, we can ask for that, but now.
Are we allowed to have a beer?
You can order it separately, but I don't know, maybe after we should make plans to all have. So beer.
No, I'm just asking the question.
The task force is meeting after this meeting, so not everybody can, but yeah, we can make a ton of plans to continue to get to know each other after the.
Wink, wink.
Wink. Okay. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, and we're still trying to figure out, you know, the best way to engage you. Well, so it'll be worth your time when you're at the retreat. After, I'm gonna move into, are we gonna try to go or not go?
Well, it kind of depends on where they are, if they're still talking about it or not.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna move into the consent agenda minutes. And I'm skipping a couple of things here, but let's approve the minutes of April. We'd like to have a motion.
So, Taylor Sweet.
Thank you, Sarah. And second by Suzanne. Any edits or minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none. And the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Here, you're gonna check.
Oh, you know, you might want to go over.
Yeah.
That, I got a text, that amendment went down. Martine Goulet's second amendment right now would prohibit Rice from charging the public system more than private payers. Some of the religious schools do that. They charge the public more than private payers. Being called for a short recess. Outside the house, listening to some chamber is the private school lobbyists, including Scott Beck.
Yeah. So
a lot of notes going to Campion.
So it is not required, but it would be great if we could all go to the State House. If we could adjourn a little bit early and all, you know, pack our stuff and either walk or park near the State House. Right now, parking is free and we will show up and build the gallery. I think it would be very powerful. If you guys are willing to do that, we can skip the NSBA update, you know, or we can be very brief with Neil, Kara, myself, we're at the NSBA in New Orleans. It was a great, inspiring conference. There was a lot of travel mishaps because of the storm. So it took a couple of few members a little longer to go. I was leaving earlier because I had a meeting and just by chance ended up being there.
So you missed it. You missed it.
I missed it.
Neil and I got the
Yeah, Tara got the worst effect, but Neil moved heaven and earth to get there on time, but the delegate assembly went without any major discussion. It was all good. All of the work really got done in January. So what we have shared in January is really good. Significant, and I don't know what else to share because I'm just itching to go to the State House. It was a great conference. You guys were well represented. We will continue. So
You said parking, that you can park anywhere.
Anywhere, anywhere, no,
Hours.
yeah, no need. So with that, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Yeah, Aaron. Oh, no, second by.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Clark. Those in favor, please stack up and go. How many?